But as you move higher in the categories, like now when we're talking about NCA 3, NCA 2, NCA 1, we will insist that one of the directors must be somebody who has got core competencies in the construction sector, and we will be insisting that he must be a technically qualified director. The reason for that is, of course, at the end of the day, you want somebody who will be able to take responsibility should something go wrong on site. And it's also the element, as you're saying, how the act had been conceived. Our aim was to professionalize the construction. Just like the way we have lawyers, we have them regulated, we have doctors, so should also contractors.
Okay, let's go to somebody possibly who is looking at buying a home. Because sometimes when you're buying a home, you are not there when they were building, you don't know what safety standards were taken, and let's face it, the house is a shell which looks beautiful, but you do not know what's on the inside. What are some of the other documents that I can request for from the person selling that will prove to me that they adhered to the regulations?
Well, the first thing you actually look at was the project or the house. Did it get approvals from the county government? Now, approvals, you have to realize, we always normally focus on approvals at the beginning. Okay? But when the project is completed, what document do you actually provide to ascertain that this building has been put up following all the laid down procedures and is fit for occupation, and it certifies that the functions for which the building had been designed have been met? Ask for the occupation certificate.
Okay.
The occupation certificate is what certifies that that building is safe for occupation, and it is actually issued by the county government. If you're ever buying any project, any building or any house, and you go to the bank, they will ask you for the occupation certificate. Now, that occupation certificate is something I've also said we should also be asking for when it comes to renting still. Because even if you're still renting the building, how can you be sure that this particular building is safe? Occupation certificate.
Okay. Now, some of these regulations that we're talking about, are they specifically just for Nairobi, or do you have that now even in the rural areas?
Yeah, I think your question is quite valid. You know, like when it comes to planning elements, if you're doing your house, let's say within the rural setup, you don't even have sewer, you don't have any roads, it would be very difficult for you to necessarily have asked for approval at the county level. Of course, again, depends on the scale. But if you're talking about a building where you're going more than one story, then there's of course a risk of that building collapse. So such a building should always have approvals and should always have the requisite professionals involved for it.
But now, if I was to do a building in Nairobi, even if it's residential and it's just one floor, it's a bungalow, which, you know, it's just one, it doesn't even go one floor, it's just literally one, I don't know what to call it.
Just one story, yes.
One story.
Yes.
I would require the county government to approve. But now, if I was up country and doing the same thing, would I still require the county government to approve that?
Yes, you see, does it fall within the urban setup? You know, that is really what, like now if we look at Nairobi, as we're sitting here, there is what we call the CBD, then there's what we call the outskirts, like now when you're moving to Kilimani, all those areas, so long as it falls under the gambit of the what do you call it, the county government, it does require approval. But also remember what I said at the onset, all projects should be registered by the National Construction Authority.
Right.
And even if you're doing a boundary wall, you've also seen a scenario where boundary walls collapse and they do kill. And the problem is that when there is a disaster, that is when everybody comes up and starts saying, where are these agencies?
And what happened, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I would just say the rule of thumb, have your project registered.
Okay. And I guess it's better safe than sorry. You'd rather go and they tell you the area you're operating, you can go ahead, than to leave it then.
And that is an approval, you see.
Yes.
Yes, you see, that in itself is an approval.
Absolutely, yeah. They've given you the go-ahead. Yes. All right, now, maybe some of the things that one must look out for before you begin construction. You've talked about the documentation. What about now looking at contractors, other than just them being registered? Do they have a document that they will present? You know, if I was looking for an accountant, for example, there's certain, he'll come and tell me, I've done this course, I've done this course, I've done this course, here's the documentation. Now, with a contractor, do we have anything like that?
Now, the beauty about the National Construction Authority and its operations are in tandem with the Jubilee Government Manifesto, which is being IT compliant. Any contractor that you're using right now, simply take their name and go onto our website, www.nca.go.ke. Fill in the name of the contractor and it will pop up. If the name is not there, there are two things. One, that person has never been registered as a contractor by the National Construction Authority, or 2, they have not had their annual renewal. So those are the 2 levels. First and foremost, get registered as a contractor. That's from the onset when you do your first application. And the second thing is the renewal. But be it as I have put it, we've had some interesting scenarios, and this is one of the things we've experienced when we're doing our quality assurance when we go to various sites. We've actually had people masquerading as officials of the National Construction Authority coming to sites, and that is just the ills of corruption which we've been having. We've had some who've gone to the extent of even branding vehicles with the National Construction Authority logo, and they come and they of course try to exploit. Yes. We've had some people who've been making applications with fraudulent documents. Like you'd have somebody coming up with a car KST 401 and purports it has been registered by Kenya Revenue Authority last year, when KST is a number that I think was being registered around 1982. So we've had those kind of challenges, and every day we are trying to streamline so that at the end of the day, one, we have an authentic register, which I could say right now is almost there as we keep improving. And then number 2, with the goodwill of the Kenyans, we've also been receiving information. If you actually think there's any contractor who has an issue and you forward that information to us, we do the necessary investigations. But again, there's another side that has also been there. We've also having people trying to set scores. So if I have a grudge with you, you just send the name there. So we've been trying to do that balancing. But by and large, I would say we are there. All
right. Finally, if now an NCA official came to site, do they have identification? How do I know that this is actually a genuine one?
First and foremost, we don't visit sites on Friday. Why don't we visit sites on Friday? Because there's been that concept that the National Authority comes to a site on Friday to intimidate the worker or the contractor, and they tell you that there's a weekend. So that is one of the things. We never close any site on a Friday. Number 2, we are friendly. You see, the issue about, it's something that you have to balance, in the sense that when one of our officials do come to site, we politely request for this information, because our view is that we are giving a service in terms of construction so that we can have a better environment. Number 3, identification. All our officers who come to site have a proper identification badge and a number, so that if you have any doubt, if anybody actually comes to site and you ask them for their identification, though ours are displayed, and that person renegades on it, straight away you know that you're dealing with, would call them a fraudster.
Okay.
Yes.
And on the identification, is there a number that one can call, or just verify? Because I'm sure a card can be forged.
Yes, of course, that is true. And I would be circulating what we call the hotline number, so that any person who comes to your site and you have any worry on that, you'll actually find it if you go to our website, the series of the hotline numbers which you can call.
Okay.
And then, of course, last but not least, we never come alone. All right, we always have at least 3 officers, so that there's an element that it's a team effort. One of the things I'd like to spread the gospel to everybody out there in relation to the National Construction Authority. Our aim is to improve on construction quality in the country, and it is something that you cannot do alone. We are also asking on the public, if they see any site, but if you see any site that does not have a site signboard, that is a recipe for disaster, because on every site you have a site signboard that gives you the information, who the contractor is, what the approval number was from the county government, from NEMA, who are the consultants. So that particular information, I would say, is
so you're urging the members of the public, should they see that it could be a potential disaster, and they should report it?
Yes. Okay. And then last but not least, a site that is NCA compliant, as I would put it, we do issue a compliance certificate. And that is something that should be clear. Okay. Sometimes the public may complain that our visits are frequent, but you have to remember that construction is a long process. So in the first 3 months, somebody could have actually complied and then they get laxed.
Right.
That's why we have to keep doing regular
until
visits.
They finish.
From the beginning to the end.
All right, thank you very much, Steve Oundo, Chair for the National Construction Authority, for highlighting some of the things that we need to know, and especially that the authority is there to ensure that we have safer buildings and we have less that are collapsing, and that, if possible, even eliminate that element completely. Thank you very much, sir.
Most appreciated.
All right. Well, do stay with us right here on Morning Express, and Person of Interest will be coming up shortly or a little bit later, but I'll let you know how that goes. But for now, do stay with us. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.